Right now, just going over the basics, we are out here in Gladiuses and light fighters in general, more for the fact that they're very quick. So the maneuvers and the thruster control that we're all talking about is very easy to see quickly right there in front of you. And same with like you were just talking about shield management and ammo management. With the light fighters, we can see our shields recharge very quickly and see our guns recharge very quickly, um, on a much smaller scale. So it's a little easier for learning the basics on. The couple of things that I would certainly change immediately would be your power triangle settings. You want to have quick access to those. So in your options, key bindings, advanced, uh, power triangle is a little below the middle. And then you want to have set max tap for weapons set to 1, engines set max tap set to 2, and shields set max tap set to 3. And then my reset is set to double tap R. You could also set it to double tap 1, 2, or 3, or you could set it to 4. Some people like to put it on 4. You will have to rebind a few targeting things that were on 1, 2, and 3, and then whatever you set your reset to. And honestly, you really don't need reset because you should really be at 100% something at all the time. I guess in combat, but yeah, when you're just floating around in between things, it is nice to be able to reset just so that all your shields and boost comes back while you're just derping around to the next location. Okay, thanks, honey. That's true. Like I said, I mean, I put mine on double tap R, so I mean that's quick and easy. I like the double tap options. Um, and then once those are set, if you really don't need to initially, but it is nice to have the things you just overrode, where your pin, set. If someone sets target pin 1, 2, and 3, like you used to use 1, 2, and 3 to set to those targets. So if you go into where is it? Flight targeting, vehicles targeting. Your pin index 1, 2, and 3. You could set those to shift 1, 2, and 3. Well, no, that would be bad. Maybe alt 1, 2, 3, and then set uh, the pin itself to alt double tap 1, 2, 3. Unless you don't set pins yourself very often, a lot of people just ignore these settings, so it's really up to you. Pin 1 is not a bad one to have somewhere. Yeah, I think I have mine set to double tap T. Because yeah, all you need is one target at a time. Just follow my target. Tink tink. Um, okay, and then the rest of your key bindings should be just fine by default. But in combat, in particular, getting used to using your power triangle is one of the first things you should start to work on. And initially, until you're more comfortable with it, I would stay mostly power to shields, and then once your laser repeaters run out of ammo, switch full power to weapons, and they'll recharge in like 3.5 to 4 seconds. And then you can switch back to full power to shields, and then as you use your boost, when you get below half, just start mixing full power to engines when you can, when it's not needed. Um, and another one thing to keep in mind about your shields is before your shields can begin to recharge, if they're fully depleted, you need to not take any damage for 5 seconds, which means during that 5 seconds that you're escaping, you could be in power to engines getting some boost back. And little things like that, like just kind of weave the engines in whenever you can. But getting used to using your power triangle is going to change everything about combat for you. You'll be able to, oh, my shields are down. You can zip away, full power to shields. Your shields will instantly come back, 5 seconds maybe. And then you're able to dip right back into combat and empty your guns out. Full power to guns. They're back full charge in 3 seconds. You're dumping your mag again. Like, instead of having to wait for recharges and wait for your shields to come back, you can really fine-tune when and where your ship systems are going. So beyond just controlling your ship through the keyboard, the power systems and getting into actual like maneuvering your ship, we use this term a lot called Tri-Coording. And Tri-Coording is simply just when you use all 3 available thrust axes at the same time. So you have forward and back, side to side, and up and down as directional thrusters. And if you apply one of them, you output a certain amount of G-forces. And when you get out here, you can see it happening right in your ship's HUD. It's kind of neat, actually. So if you were to hold W, it would apply a certain amount of force. And then if you also hold A, you're now adding that amount of force in the left direction. And then if you hold spacebar on top of it, you're adding even more force from whole new thrusters in the upward direction. And those 3 thrusters combined give you a much higher maximum G-force output, which allows you to get to your top speed much faster. So when you really need to move, you can press either W, A, and spacebar, or W, A, and control, or S, D. It's got to be any form of up and down combined with left and right combined with forward and back. But the reason forward and up are both particularly important for maximum G, because your forward thrusters and your up thrusters, like Glass was saying, are the strongest. Usually by a lot, depending on the ship. But so just knowing that you want to be able to use multiple button presses at the same time to accelerate faster. And the more you start to use it, it'll start to make more sense. And I think you and I have talked a little bit about lead pip and lag pip in the past. It's a really hard one to explain, but a lot of people find once they get used to it, the lag pip gives them much more accuracy. So when you get out here, we'll switch your pip type and try and give you a live example of how it works. The reason that I find the lag pip is more beneficial is because you're focusing your attention on your enemy target, not some little box floating inches in front of them. You're actually looking at them, and you're putting a cursor on them directly. Today we are going over how to do a helix spiral or a corkscrew approach to shake damage. The goal being that hopefully by the end of the day, he'll be able to face down an NPC hammerhead and just sit there and not take damage from him, or not very much damage. Yep. This little trick you should literally be able to solo a hammerhead once you learn how to do this maneuver properly with any ship. It just takes time, but you won't have to beat him today. But I do think you will be able to sit a couple, 1 kilometer off and not take any damage. Okay, nice. You guys, hold on. Flipping back to full screen. Okay, so on your HUD, right next to your pitch, you see the little G safe, and then there's that funky little meter, and it tells you how many G's you're pulling. So go ahead and just press W. Oh, hey, real quick, another thing. Put your velocity limiter all the way up. Yeah. So use your scroll wheel, and you should be able to just throw it all the way up. And from today on, you should practice velocity control. And you can just tap W to stay where you want to stay and try and manually control your velocity, and do not limit yourself. That way, when you want to punch it, you can punch it, and no computer thruster control will get in your way. Unless you tap out that speed, which would be your ship's maximum. So just hold W from a standstill. Just hold it for a few seconds and see how many G's you accrued. It should be about 11.9. And then, oh, nice. Okay, and then come to a full stop again and do the same thing, but with just a little bit of left thrust, just A. And you'll see you push out about 4 G's. And then with with right, you'll notice it's roughly equivalent to your left. So your left and right thrusters are generally the same power, but now do your up thrust and measure it. You'll get about a 9. And then try down thrust once you come to a 0 stop again. And you'll notice your down thrust is about a 4, while your up thrust is about a 9. So you get much more power with your up thrusters. Same with your reverse thrusters. You only get 4.8, while your forward thrusters get almost 12. So by combining your 3 strongest thrusters, forward, side, and up, now press all 3 at the same time, and you'll notice you push 15.4 Gs, which is huge. But you're also going at this kind of funny angle upward. So that's something to just keep in mind. Are you familiar with your velocity indicator? The little carrots that point towards each other on your screen? Yeah. Yeah, so that's just showing you what direction your ship is moving. So when you press all 3 buttons at the same time, you'll notice that kind of pushes up more than anything, because you're your upward thrusters are quite strong. But that's just something to keep in mind. So when you do tricord, you either have to tip your nose down a little bit so that you kind of, you know, treat it almost like a helicopter, where a helicopter leans forward as it accelerates really hard. When you tricord, you kind of want to do a similar thing, but you kind of yaw off to the left a little bit if you're using right thrust, or you yaw off to the right a little bit if you're using left thrust. But that way you can, if a missile's coming towards you, you can tricord and fire your flares, and you are going to be moving out of the way of that missile as fast as you possibly can. Or if someone has got you in the slot and they're ripping on you, you can just press all 3 boosters and then add a little bit of boost on top of it, and now you're pushing at almost 20 Gs, 18.5 Gs, and you can just get out, and then you can turn around and reassess, you know. It'll give you time to recharge your shields. You can tricord out at full boost, get a few seconds between you and them, and then go full power to shields, and your shields will start recharging. And even if they don't get all the way back up, you can still, you know, that's more shields than you had a few seconds ago. So now that you know a little bit more about all your thrusters and how you can properly use them, the first kind of maneuver that I think is important is what we've been talking about this whole time, the barrel roll, the spiral roll. And what you're going to do is, I'm going to come line up with you here. We're going to blade off, as they call it, I guess, where we look each other dead in the eye. A couple thousand meters away here. And initially, we're not going to use any forward thrust at all. We're just going to sit here and use our upward thrusters and your roll, so your Q and E and spacebar. And it's kind of a dance. You don't want to just hold the buttons down, because you end up going too quick and you won't get a nice maneuver out of it. But if you kind of watch my ship here, I'm going to do it on the keyboard. Just kind of tap spacebar and tap E, and you just kind of bring yourself slowly up and around. And then while you're doing that, use your mouse to try and keep your reticle on my ship while you're just up and spinning. Yep, E, spacebar, keep the reticle on me, and then you can start applying more spacebar and more E, you know, maybe bigger bursts of them, and kind of just play around. Right before I got cut off, I was just starting to go over why this maneuver is so important. So I've got this pen in my hand, and the pen will be the target, and this little laser pointer is your oh man, it's actually getting cut out. Anyway, the laser pointer is the aiming pip, right? What you're supposed to be shooting at. So if you're moving this direction, the pip is going to be out here, where it thinks this target is going to be in a few seconds. So the reason this maneuver is advantageous is you're coming around this circle that you're creating, and it's putting your pip out here, and they're going to shoot bullets here, and by the time those bullets get here, your ship is actually going to be up here on this part of the spiral that you're doing. So this aiming pip will always be outside of your spiral, and they will be shooting in a big cone around you while you keep this nice tight formation and keeping them beaded the whole time by using your pitch and yaw as you maneuver around, and that way the whole point of this is to trick the targeting pip so that what their targeting computer is shooting at is not actually where you're going to be. And that basically makes you invincible. So this maneuver you want to do on your approach, and if you can hold it, and this is where the next piece of the whole combat puzzle comes in, and that's range control. It's not always about just ripping in, tackling them, and trying to get immediately into a close range rate fight, which is another one of our combat terms. A rate fight is simply when it's turn rate versus turn rate. Who can turn faster? Ideally, you want to stay in this ideal range where you can continue this evasive maneuver to shake damage, but you can keep them locked in a position where you can continuously get hits. And that's a combination of keeping your velocity under control, keeping their velocity under control, and continuing to be able to shake the damage while you move in. And if you believe you can win the rate fight, you can then close the gap and tackle into them and go into a rate fight. But unless you're an arrow versus anything, that's you gotta really assess that. And if you're the slower ship, if there's an arrow coming right at you and you're in a slightly heavier ship, hey skydiving, welcome. If you're in a slightly heavier ship and they're in a lighter fighter and they're trying to come in and tackle you like that, keeping track of your range control and knowing when to use reverse thrust and not just always holding forward is important, because you want to try and stay in that sweet spot, which generally, we're talking about gladiuses right now, is about 800 to 500 meters. You don't really even want to take shots if you're outside of that range, because the likelihood that when those bullets get to where your pip said they needed to be, that pilot's probably not going to be there. But at 500 meters, the time it takes the bullets to travel is shorter than the time it takes him to make that maneuver. So you're going to land more shots. And that's why learning how to control your roll speed is important too, because as you get closer to your target, it takes less time for their bullets to get to you. So you need to be moving faster to get out of the way. So if you're at about a kilometer, 800 meters, you can do these nice lazy spirals. But as you really get in, you need to start hugging it and really tightening your spiral in, and then coming out into a rate fight. But for now, we want to just focus on the barrel roll aspect. So, keep practicing that maneuver, and then